Hey YouTube fragrance family, welcome to a new video idea which is called, I don't know yet, my top scents over the years. So I decided to go through base notes. I was just having some fun and I noticed on base notes that they have this option that you can check out scents of every year. So if I put in 1921 and then it'll tell you, well, there's only 30 cents available right now that you can purchase, or it'll say discontinued or not from those years. And I thought that was really an interesting idea for a video, which means I'm gonna go from year to year, and it might grow to a top 20 list, but for now, obviously starting, I'm gonna start with 1961. I decided to forego, there's a lot of fragrances that I actually like before 1961. Unfortunately, it's not going to do a very interesting video. So I'm going to skip some years over these videos. You're going to see that. And the lists are going to get bigger and bigger. So in 1961, I got two fragrances. Now, these fragrances, I'm basically saying my top scents, the ones that I've smelt before. Obviously, fragrances that come out in 1961. Damn it, I wasn't even born in 1961. So there's a disclaimer here. So the older fragrances, especially these videos that I'm going to be shooting until, probably the late 80s is probably when I was, fragrance gets released and I actually smelt it when it was released. So my disclaimer on these videos already, if I talk about a fragrance from 1961, I'm not talking about the original formulation. It's from when I smelt it. And I respect it from when I smelt it. I might have smelt a vintage portion of the fragrance. However, I just want to put a disclaimer out there so nobody gets confused saying, well, Mark, you're only 30 years old. How come you smelt this fragrance? You don't know the vintage portion. Please, coffee. Yeah, I'm well aware. These fragrances, the packaging has changed. They might have been discontinued already a long time ago. Reformulated like a madman. I know. These are fragrances that I appreciate. It doesn't mean that I have it in my huge collection here. I might not have it. I might have it. Obviously, if I have a bottle, I'll talk more in depth about it. It doesn't even matter if it's a women's fragrance or a men's fragrance. If I appreciate it, I've smelt it before, I've smelt it on someone, I'm going to tell you guys my top scents from year to year. So I decided to go 1961, no rhyme or reason. The only real rhyme or reason for this is I wanted to make this like a library, a video. So I didn't want to start in 1990 and then I'm done after like 20 of these videos. I really wanted to go 61. I might skip a couple years, go to 67 or something like that. However, let's get into the video. Let me tell you, this list in 1961, there's not much to pick from. There's two fragrances that I'm going to talk about that were released in 1961. One technically was not released in 61, but I'm pushing it in there just because I can. So, the first one, and I'm going to put them in order of my favorites, is a woman's fragrance. It was released back in obviously 61 by Hermes, and it was Caleche, the eau de toilette. The nose behind Caleche was Guy Rabad. Guy Rabad is known for Amouage Gold for men and women. Also known for Equipage for men by Hermes, also Dior Essence, many others. Guy Rabad was actually a really great nose back in the day. This fragrance, Caleche Eau de Toilette, was a aldehydic fragrance and iris-based fragrance when I smelt it. As many of you know, Chanel was really the house that brought aldehydic fragrances to light in perfumery, and Hermes kind of piggybacked on that with Caleche. Caleche has a soapy, creamy feel to it, and that's where I go with the iris being a main point, because iris kind of gives you that creaminess. Also, aldehydes kind of gives you like, I always want to say aldehydic fragrances kind of have like that, almost that champagne like feel. It almost feels bubbly, soapy in a way. And Caleche, that's what it smelled like to me, soapy and creamy. It had a timeless air to it when I smelt it. Not something I would personally wear, to be quite honest. However, I give it props for lasting on the market as a better seller for years in Hermes. So Caleche is one of their I wouldn't say they're top seller, but in the women's side of things, it has a whole lineup, and they've done, you know, an eau de parfum of Caleche and things like that. So a fragrance that I would say I admire. It's not something that I would actually personally wear. So number one on the list is actually a fragrance that was not released in '61, but I have like a little loophole. It is Vetiver by Caleche. Now I do have a bottle of Vetiver. I'll get it right after this, but the official release of Caleche's Vetiver was 1959. However, in 1961 was the USA official release. So I'm giving it that, and I'm putting it as my number one release for 1961. Now the nose behind Caleche's Vetiver is none other than Jean-Paul Caleche. His resume, I'm not going to pitch you his resume. Jean-Paul Caleche's resume speaks for itself, so I'm not even going to go there. The bottle obviously has changed over the years. It was actually relaunched in the year 2000. I actually have one of the newer bottles, well, newish. They actually have changed it, I believe, to the Habit Rouge kind of square bottle. Correct me if I'm wrong. However, I do have this from Caleche's Vetiver, and really a simple fragrance. However, it really did invoke what Vetiver smells like, and I really appreciated it. As a fragrance, early in my journey, I really went, oh, this is what Vetiver smells like, because there's not much to Caleche's Vetiver. It really is very simple, straightforward, yet very masculine. It is basically timeless, classic Vetiver in the game. This is my go-to, basically. You know, that's basically the way I look at Vetiver. If you can't do better than what Caleche has done now, forget about it. It has that old school feel, and some compare it to Eau Sauvage as an old school familiar feel to it. Clean, herbal, green. However, this one has a very big wallop of clean Vetiver, and this is where Gray Vetiver from Tom Ford kind of used that idea. I'm pretty sure Tom Ford was, you know, behind that. He was like, that's the kind of formula I want as my Vetiver. This fragrance has that stereotypical clean cologne smell to it. In this day and age, that notes quickly go in and out of style, just like clothing. Vetiver has stood the test of time in men's perfumery, and this is one of its staples. Vetiver's naughty notes that's in modern perfumery that jumps out as a note. It really is kind of like lavender. It's just there in a fragrance, and I appreciate what Caleche has done with this fragrance. In this day and age, Vetiver really doesn't invoke much of a, it's more of a classic note than anything. It really isn't, you know, something that would jump out at you as a Vetiver based scent. However, Vetiver does stand the test of time with some modern perfumery, which includes Vetiver Tonka from Hermes. I love that juice. Encre Noire, obviously, from Lalique. Sycamore from Chanel, among others that have made this classic note still live on to this day. So, in closing, this is by far my favorite release in 1961. I'm putting the rabbit ears on it just because I know some people are going to say, no, it was released another year. I'm putting it as 1961. My favorite. I really think this one still has that classic air to it. Really, really well composed Vetiver. Now those are my two old school 1961 favorites. I can't wait to go delve into this a little bit more year by year. I really think the 90s is going to be really interesting for me, and obviously the 2000s. Again, the list will get bigger depending on the year, right? It might jump up to top 5 to top 10, and then it might go to a top 20. We'll see from year to year, but please let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these two fragrances, if you smelt them, Caleche, Caleche's Vetiver. If you have a favorite in 1961, probably these first few videos on this, we're not going to get much feedback, obviously, because there's not much out there from 1961. However, I would like comments below in these couple videos, especially the new ones. Let me know what you guys think about this idea, what you guys think about the fragrances that I've spoke about that are still in stores, obviously reformulated, different packaging. So thank you again for all your support. Have a good one.